Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2022 Complexity Weekend Heartbeat. For the first 10 minutes or so of this stream, we'll be playing some instructional videos, first on how to use Gather, the video chat platform, and then how to use Jamboard, the visual collaboration tool. Then we'll play Michael Garfield music for about 20 minutes, and that'll take us right up to the live section of the broadcast. So please enjoy these instructional pre-recorded videos for about 10 minutes, followed by music, and we'll look forward to the interactive live stream and to seeing you in Gather soon. Hello, this video is going to cover Gather, which is the video chat platform used for all Complexity Weekend interactive events. In this video, we're going to go over a few slides that will cover information on Gather, and then I'll go into Gather itself in the browser window and show you what it looks like to walk around. First, Gather is in the browser. It can be accessed by desktop or mobile, and there's no need to install any applications. If it's your first time in Gather, you may need to approve microphone and video access, shown here. And also you might need to explore which browser works best on your computer. Many people have found that Chrome works well for them. When you navigate to this URL, you'll find that you can enter your name and select what your character looks like. The first time that you enter Gather, you might go to a tutorial, and you can skip that tutorial if you want. Or you can use the tutorial to explore how to walk around with the arrow keys, how to mute and unmute, and also how to interact with objects. Again, this tutorial can be skipped. When you get into Gather, what it looks like is shown here on the top, and the bottom bar is expanded to look at what functions are provided. So on the bottom left, the grapes here access the settings, and that's where you can change audio and visual settings, as well as features like auto muting when you're away. Clicking what your avatar looks like, you can customize how they appear. You can click on your name to edit your name and or your status, which is like a little message that appears below your name. Here, with the red and the green microphone and camera, clicking on these two will turn off your audio, mute you, or turn it back on, as well as to turn off or on your camera. And clicking the triangle next to the microphone and next to the camera will select what audio or visual input you're going to use. The smiley face brings up different reactions that you can have, which are like short-lived excitements that your character displays. The picture of a computer monitor is going to allow for screen share, and the screen share can share a window or a whole display. And then there's raise hand, and the raise hand is going to stay up as long as you have it up. You need to click it again for it to go down, but people will be able to see that your hand is raised, and so we use that in facilitated sessions so that we know who wants to speak. On the bottom right, two buttons to take a look at. First is the chat, those two bubbles. When you go to the chat, a sidebar comes in from the right side where you can have chats that go to the whole room, which is everybody in the space, just to nearby, which is just people who you can see and hear on audio, as well as an inbox that is like one-on-one messages. And then on the very far right, you can click the people button, which is going to have a number showing how many people are in the space at that time. And you can also right-click on people who are in that sidebar and right-click follow them to walk over to see them, or you can send them a message. And just a little bit more information on the settings. When you go to settings, you can select your audio and visual settings, and you also might want to check out this setting, auto idle muting, which can automatically mute you if you're away from the tab, and you might want to turn that off if you don't want that feature. Just a few tips, and then we'll head over to Gather. So first, if it seems like two people cannot hear or see each other, then one or both of them should try reloading. It happens, and it's just part of the process of being an online community of practice. If you use Control and plus or minus, or Control and scroll up or down, the entire page can get larger or smaller. Scrolling up or using plus, and then conversely using scroll down and minus, that'll make it smaller. So that can help improve visibility. If you click on someone's video or screen share, it will make it large. And then also on the top right, you can switch modes from the carousel view here to the grid view. So if you're speaking with multiple people, you might want to use the grid view where they will all just be on your screen in a grid. And then you could click on one of their images to make it larger or their screen share. So now I'm going to head into the CW Atrium space. I'm just going to click this link. I'm going to allow access to the camera and the microphone. Then the name today will be Complexity. Hit join the gathering. This is the tutorial. It's possible to skip the tutorial. I'm recording, so it's not finding my camera. And this is the Complexity Weekend Atrium. This is like a common meeting space for a lot of Complexity Weekend events. You can navigate around with the arrow keys or by double-clicking a place. So you can quickly travel to anywhere you want to go by double-clicking or by using the arrow keys. You may find that when you're on, for example, a rug, that you have a private space. And so everybody who's in this rug area is able to hear each other and speak with each other. And there's also a special tile that is marked with an orange broadcast sign. And from this square, you're speaking to everybody in the room, though you can't hear them. You can use X to interact with objects. For example, here we'll interact with this poster, and the poster loads up. And there's other objects that can be interacted with. And then just to go over the bottom bar, again, the main menu, the settings are on the bottom left. To customize your character, you can click your name and edit what your character looks like. You can turn your microphone on or off. You can turn your camera on or off. I can't turn it on in this situation. Here are the reactions. And then you can raise your hand by hitting reaction number 6 or by just the lower hand, raised hand button. And so what that looks like is in the People tab, you see that the hand has been raised. So people can keep an eye out for anyone who has raised their hand and might want to share. Screen share is going to bring up a dialogue for you to share your display or a window. And then on the bottom right side, there's the information board where there might be some pinned messages or announcements. There's a calendar that describes different events that will be upcoming. For example, earlier today, we had the Teams and the Tech Committee meeting here in this space. Here's the Chat tab, where you can send messages to the whole room or nearby. And lastly, the Participants, where you'll see everybody else who's in the space at that time. So this has been the Gather video. Hope that you found it useful, and thanks for joining CW. Hello, this video is going to be about using Jamboard at Complexity Weekend. Jamboard is a visual collaboration tool. This video is going to have some slides to give an overview of Jamboard, and then I'll go into a Jamboard so we can see what it looks like. We use Jamboard to collaborate during live streams and also facilitated interactive sessions. It really helps build on each other's perspective, give visibility to ideas, people, and teams. When you go into Jamboard, it's going to look like it is on the left side, which is these big open slides. And then by the time that we're done with it, we've added in many people's thoughts, and it's always really creative where it goes. So this is the kind of creative collaboration that Jamboard enables. When you're in Jamboard, on the top bar, if you see how many slides there are, like 2 of 20, you can click on that icon and that will allow you to scroll and select and move amongst different slides. We'll see this in just a second in the Jamboard. And on the left side, you see all of the actions that you can take to modify the Jamboard, which is you can draw with a pen, you can erase, you can use your mouse, you can add a sticky note, you can add an image. Also, you can paste images in. You can add shapes, you can add text, and you can use a laser. So let's go to a Jamboard, and this is what you'll see when you click a Jamboard link. So here we are in the Jamboard, and I'm going to navigate. I'm going to navigate to the second slide by hitting the next frame, or could have expanded the frame bar and then clicked over to the second frame. I'll go to the third frame so we can make a little art. Here's the pen. This is a drawing tool. Here's the eraser. It erases what you drew with a pen. The mouse allows you to pick things up and rotate them or resize them. The sticky note allows you to test sticky notes or do more than test, as well as double clicking on them to edit. Adding an image allows you to upload an image, or you can just paste it in. Here, you can add shapes. You can also add a plain text box or textbook. And lastly, you can use the laser. This is just a short-lived trace that dissipates. So that will get you to do what you need to do in Jamboard, which is navigate to the link in the browser, move over to whichever slide we're currently looking at, and then contribute your thoughts through sticky notes, images, shapes, text box, everything. So thanks for watching, and see you in Jamboard. All right, and now we'll have about 20 minutes of Michael Garfield and then into the live section. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2022 Complexity Weekend Heartbeat. Great to see everyone on the live stream watching. This is going to be a organizer's introduction with a few slides, followed by an interactive Jamboard. And for the Jamboard section, if anybody would like to join me, just head over to the Gather Atrium link where all of the interactive activities will be, and you'll be welcome to join for the Jamboard. In this video, there'll be a welcome to Complexity Weekend, just to mention a few things and provide a couple links, and then we'll go over the August 2022 Heartbeat event program. And then for the rest of the hour or so, we'll be using the interactive Jamboard, and then the rest of the first interval of the heartbeat and all of the second interval of the heartbeat will be in the interactive Gather space. So first, Complexity Weekend, our community of practice. Welcome, everyone, whether it's your first time or not your first time. History and initial conditions are quite important for complex systems. And here we have some of our history. Complexity Weekend had its first event in May 2019 in person in San Francisco. And since then, we've had 2 Complexity Weekends per year. We had 2 weekend cohorts in 2020, 2 in 2021, had an April 2022 cohort earlier in the year, and now we're heading in towards the September weekend, which we'll talk more about soon. And each of these weekend cohorts, things have been evolving and developing. So we really appreciate those who have joined for one or more. It's been quite a journey. And one way to look at this rhythm that we've set up through deep time is in terms of this oscillating energy. The green line is the community energy, and there are smaller peaks and larger peaks. The smaller peaks are the monthly heartbeat events. So those are in the months in between the weekends. And then the larger peaks of community energy are the weekend experiences. So here would be like the April weekend, and then here's heading into the September. And the bar leading up to the weekend is the pre-weekend period. And so it's actually awesome that today we're kicking off the pre-weekend for the September 23 to 25 weekend. And the pre-weekend helps familiarize people with the cohort, with the ideas, with the tools, the approaches, what are interactive facilitated sessions like, how do teams form, what are opportunities to join and form teams. And this is a rhythm that we're set up for through deep time. So another way to look at this is taking that community energy oscillation and seeing where your complexity journey and your team's journey comes into play. So hope that's visible. Good. In the background of the community oscillation is your journey here with a yellow line. And there's some events you join, there's some events you don't join. This is no one's full-time life. And so this one trajectory, it's not the only trajectory, but this person joined a heartbeat, then they had a great time for a weekend, they joined the heartbeat after the weekend, and that is reflecting your own journey and development and your own path through time with the teams that you are working with. And those could be the teams that are from people you met within Complexity Weekend. It could be the committees in Complexity Weekend, which we'll talk more about. That's just one way to look at it. One other way we can talk about the Complexity Weekend structure is in terms of event-based roles. So here, the biggest circle is the participants, and everyone is fundamentally a participant. And then we are able to structure participation according to event-specific roles. So organizers of specific events, a weekend or a heartbeat, are those who coordinate everything else to happen, make sure emails are sent, and so on. Facilitators are per event roles that are there to facilitate and catalyze your participation. So they're not presenters, they're not speakers, they're not giving a talk. They might have some background or some information to share. They often do. However, they're primarily there to facilitate participation and to be there as participants themselves. Associates and supporters are those who provide non-financial and financial support for the community, respectively, and that helps sustain our work through deep time. We have also several types of teams. We have teams that are participant-led and on their own structure, their own rhythm, inside, outside, and on the interface of Complexity Weekend. We'll talk more about teams soon. And also we have special teams that are inside of Complexity Weekend are committees, and those committees are with a system of interest that is Complexity Weekend. So I'll come back to this slide, but just to look at these committees, the committees are listed here on the left, and several of them are active on a weekly timescale. Others are currently pending a facilitator to step up from the community. And committees, as with all teams and as with all events, are totally interactive. And anyone who sees an opportunity and wants to get more involved with co-organizing or with facilitating, please just ask, because the more the merrier, and the more perspectives we can bring, the better. And then lastly, on this visualization, there's two big on-ramps to joining the community. There are the monthly heartbeats, which is where you're at now. And then there are the biannual weekend cohorts. And they're very much linked because the heartbeats are an appetizer for those who are registered for the cohort. It's somebody who might just want to check out what we're up to and what do sessions look like, get a little excited for the weekend cohort. And then after someone's participated in a weekend, they might be interested to come back to the monthly heartbeats just to check in with their friends, meet new people in the community, give updates on their team, and so on. So that is the role-based way to look at this kind of rhythmic oscillation. We're currently preparing for the September weekend that is upcoming very soon. And so to help anyone who might like to learn more about participating, if you go to complexityweekend.com, I'll walk through now the registration process. So step 1, create a Complexity Weekend username or sign in if you already have an account. So I already have an account. I'm just going to click sign in. And if you go to your account settings, you'll come to the user portal. And the first question on the user portal says, will you be able to participate during the September 23 to 25 weekend cohort? All you have to do is select yes. And if you select yes, you'll be registered for the weekend cohort. So many of you probably already are. However, if you haven't done this yet, registering is free. And it's as simple as making a username on the CW site and then selecting yes on the first question. And all this other information is helpful if you'd like to add it. However, all you have to do to participate is just address this first question. Here are some of the ongoing and upcoming events in this year. So today we're in the August heartbeat, then we'll be heading towards the September weekend, and then we'll have 3 more heartbeats to round out the year. We'll have October, November, and December heartbeats. Those will be great opportunities to be reflecting on the September weekend and also to be looking forward to 2023 and the rhythm that we'll set there. So again, if you are interested in co-organizing or facilitating or supporting in any other way, please just let us know. There's a lot to say about what brings us together, our collective purpose, our core values, and our participation guidelines. And one way is to tell, another is to show and embody and enact. So to keep this video concise and open up the most space for interaction, I'll just direct towards this link. And on this Coda site, which is pasted in the YouTube chat, and it's been sent to you, the cover page, you'll see, and you can use control and scroll or control and plus and minus to make things bigger or smaller in Coda. On the cover page is the program for the heartbeat, which we'll return to. Events page, you'll see the events that are upcoming and how to register for the weekend itself and the upcoming events that we looked at. And in About and More Information, you'll see a ton of pages that you can explore with values. The values and the participation guidelines were generated through a process over the preceding months, and so they're always a work in progress. We have our mission to learn complexity science by doing, to serve through deep time, and to include to innovate. Our purpose, our values, and some notes on those values, and lists of organizational alignments that through people's feedback and through participation we've been able to implement. In participation guidelines, you'll see some information about participation and different ways that we can show up fully for each other. Also, there are some role-based guidelines and suggestions. Also, of course, always a work in progress. Also, in that About and More Information, you'll see that information on committees, on teams, which will have more information coming soon, and information about stepping up to co-organize or to facilitate. Okay, so just some specific notes on the August heartbeat, and then we'll go to the interactive Jamboard session. The link shared previously has the program, and here's a screenshot of the program. We're currently in the first hour where we're going to be probably watching on YouTube live or in replay, and then we're going to use a Jamboard to have some interactive stigmergic explorations of complexity ideas. And following that, we'll have several sessions in the interactive gather space. We'll start in the first interval with a group and one-on-one discussions. So that'll be an opportunity to get to know each other and to meet several other participants who are showing up at the same time. Then we'll have a cohort experience overview as well as a feedback session. So what do people want from the weekend? What do they already see forming, and how can we as organizers and facilitators help structure this weekend to be the best experience for those who are in the cohort? And then we'll see what happens. There's another opportunity for a facilitator who may join, or we may have spotlight talks, which are up to 5 minutes long, and it could be an opportunity for you to share an idea or to ask a question, to discuss a project you're working on. In the second interval, on 8 UTC on August 28th, Amir will facilitate group and one-on-one discussions. Then Michaela Emsch will be providing a facilitated session, biomimicry, as an entry point to complexity. Then Amir will facilitate spotlight talks and discussions. And then in the final hour of the second interval, Sean will be facilitating a session on Let's Write a Complexity Weekend Manifesto, which should be pretty awesome. This month, there were 2 co-organizers. There was myself as well as Yana. So Yana, thank you as always for your amazing co-organizing work. If you're interested in co-organizing, we meet weekly and we have a lot of fun. We have a pretty relaxed co-organizing approach and some documents that make it really clear what we need to do. And that also clears up some space for exciting things that people can bring that are really unexpected. So whether you've ever organized an event or not, we really encourage you to get involved with co-organizing, or at least show up, because you might find it to be exciting. Complexity Weekend's a complex system, and organizing is a leverage point for people who want to explore, or if you see something that you'd like to improve about Complexity Weekend, or a space you see you could contribute in, then it's awesome for those who want to show up this way. We're going to be using Gather for all the interactive video experiences that we have. And there is a short video played at the beginning of this live stream with a Gather how-to, but just head into the Gather and you should be able to figure things out, and just email us if you have any questions about it. And then we use Coda for a lot of our knowledge management, knowledge gardening, and again there, please just explore some of the links that have been shared and let us know if you have any questions about it. And last thing before the Jamboard is your support of Complexity Weekend is really vital. We're a fully participatory and volunteer community, and we want to structure things through deep time. So we want to be able to make things work, and that means finding ways to support ourselves and to provide people who are stepping up whatever they need to be able to contribute the time. So the most important way to support Complexity Weekend is showing up, participating, providing feedback. Also, it's very important and valuable for us to provide your word of mouth recommendations and just direct people to our website or send us an email at complexityweekend@gmail.com and forward it or CC a friend. Everyone is welcome to join our events and our activities and teams. They're 100% open to all backgrounds, every time zone, and facilitation and co-organizing as well. You can also go to paypal.me/complexityweekend if you want to provide financial support and gift, or just let us know about other mechanisms. And the primary things that contributions go towards are the funding of events and also improving the infrastructure of Complexity Weekend, like many of the website developments that we've engaged in this year. So now we're going to head over to the Jamboard, and we will be in the Jamboard that is posted in the YouTube link for about 30 to 40 minutes. And if anybody watching would actually like to join and discuss live, head over to the Gather Atrium and they can come on the stream. It's a public stream, of course, so keep that in mind. But if you would like to join a live stream, then head over to the Gather space and then we can talk about this. Otherwise, it will get a little lonely, but I'm still happy to read what people write on the Jamboard. But again, if you feel like joining a live stream, now is an opportunity to head over into the Atrium and share your perspective on what is going to be happening. So I've moved over to the Jamboard here. And again, the link is posted in the YouTube live chat. It says Jamboard we will use. Just while people are heading into the Jamboard, here are some of the features on the left side. So the top button is a pen. It's just for drawing, and you can select the color and the type of art you'd like to be making. The second button is an eraser, which erases pen mark. The third is a selector, which lets you select an image and resize it or rotate it. A sticky note allows you to type, and then you can move those around, reshape them. A picture, you can upload an image or you can paste one in. And that's just a cool way to bring in some multimodal, multimedia experience. You can also draw shapes. You can use a pure text box without a sticky note if you would like. And there's the laser, which is a nice stigmergic trace that just dissipates quickly, and that's pretty fun to use. And then the last piece that's relevant for Jamboard is to move between slides on the top bar. Just go to next frame, or you can drop down and then you can select the slide that you want from there. So I see a bunch of people here already. Let's head over to the second slide and let's start there. I've added in a screenshot, a memory trace of our last heartbeat. And so as people are heading to the second slide, thanks, I see people going there. I thought we could first, again, if somebody wants to join live, please join. If you would like to contribute to the Jamboard, also please feel free to do this. Truly, the more the merrier, and the more complexity that we can bring into play. And we'll start with that memory trace of the last heartbeat because it will link us to the past that we created and co-created last month. And also it will provide some sparks and some seeds for initiating this discussion, understanding how are we going to be differently reflecting on some of the questions that might have seemed a certain way last month, and now we can reflect on them differently today. So let's take some breaths, review what has been previously written here. Great. I see a bunch of people heading over there. So if you're in the second slide, then feel free to start resizing things, adding extra post-its. I'll just read some of these post-its while waiting for others to either come join and discuss in Gather, or while people are adding post-its to the slide. So I'll just read them across pretty much. Inside out and outside in expression of individuals and environment. How do our internal sensory experiences express? And then how does that expression transform the environment and people around us? How do we grow in community? How do individual practices transform the community as a whole? Bottom-up and top-down causation. How does the leaf influence the tree? And how does the community culture transform individuals? How does the community culture influence individuals? I'll shrink that just so people have a little more space to start drawing on the right side, and then we'll hand over from the memory trace of last time to the current traces of the present, now casting. Because it is really top-down or bottom-up, which has empirical and aristocratic values systems embedded in it, such as the scientist, parentheses, the head, tells the people at the bottom working on the ground what to do. But instead, we can appreciate the shared bodily experiences and needs we have in our bodies. What is deep time? If there's deep time, is there also shallow time? What is deep time? Taking a long-term perspective and building through the long-term perspective. Deep time is our community's focus of rhythms of heartbeats. Deep time is what connects that time together. What is the difference between complexity and complication? And what is complexity? And then there's some other images that can't be linguistically read in the same way. So I'm going to shrink that memory trace a little bit back down, and let's start to explore however people want. And not every interactive session will use Jamboard specifically, but this is a very common format for interactive and emergent sessions, which is that we can start from a set of questions or an observation or an experience that someone is having, and then by sharing perspectives and building on it, then we kind of we're showing and being, not telling, complexity. So let's start with a first comment. Oh, it disappeared. It disappeared. So if you had that comment, or please, again, I have little to add without others adding some texts. Great. Thank you for adding this. And anyone is welcome to join the conversation on the stream. They don't need their video on. Just find me in the Atrium if you'd like for the next 30 minutes and come have a discussion. Otherwise, this is awesome to have kind of an asynchronous multiplayer discussion. So let's start with this post-it. We are finite and limited. How do we select what to filter out and what to let in? I'm writing a sticky. How does filtering and limitations relate to complexity? Kind of a question we can always ask. How does X relate to complexity? It's an evergreen question. What does it mean to filter? Why do you need to filter? Maybe it depends on the overall goal of a system. What does it mean to filter? There's the kind of filtering that I experienced this morning when I was making coffee, and the grounds of the coffee were kept in the coffee filter while the hot liquid moved into the receptacle. What is it meant to filter our observations? How is that related to sense making? And how does it relate to the overall goal of the system? Do complex systems have goals that are expressible? Goal directedness is definitely explored in a lot of areas of complexity and adjacencies like systems and cybernetics. Are these as if goals, or what is an actual goal? What is an overall goal? Maybe like a cell, keeping out what is not needed or bad, letting in what is needed. Yeah, very interesting. We can let's like build a multicellular organism here. How do we know? How do we know what is needed or not? If we knew what was needed, wouldn't that be simple? And if one is a bacteria and it's plug and chug, glucose in, quote, waste products out, then yeah, sure, that's one type of complexity. But what about a community? How do we balance our community values of inclusion and participation with this notion of filtering? Wow, thanks. Awesome that people are adding so much, and we'll just keep on moving through new slides because there's so much already being added here. I'm just going to shrink that memory trace. It's like objects in the rear view mirror, heartbeats in the rear view mirror, maybe closer than they expected, or something like that. There's so much to read here. So again, thanks again, everyone. From the last heartbeat, I noted the relation from the leaf to the tree. Awesome. Would be great to hear more from this person or from anyone else. Like, what is the relation of the leaf and the tree? How do we know what is bad and what is good? How does complexity relate to ethics and to judgment and evaluation? It doesn't have to be some sort of ultimate or what has been perceived as ultimate judgment on the finality of bad and good, but just, is this a good avocado to eat? Is this a fair deal? Is this participation something that we want to structure and support in our garden? Do we want this plant to grow in this context? Okay, awesome. This is a long comment. Hello? I'm involved in other community activities which benefits from the mental models for collective emergence being discussed here. If synergistic, stigmergistic, and stigmergy is collective behavioral processes where there are feedbacks amongst multiple entities and their environment. So it's like an ant lays down a pheromone trail, and then another nestmate is going to perceive the environment differently and do something differently because of that. And this is like our digital stigmergy. People are modifying our digital niche, adding insightful comments, things that just are presenting themselves in the attention to diverse participants. And then we continue to build on what each other have added. So if synergistic, stigmergic learning were a goal, do you think it makes more sense to start by duplicating the initiative here or exporting the ideas from here to other spaces? Oh, looks like it moved, but great comment. Not for me to even say or know. Let's return to the question of community and good and bad. So here in the text, it says, how do we know what is bad and what is good? We know what is bad and what is good by experimenting and considering the end goal. So just scooting this over and want to connect the good and the bad to the goals of the system. So we've pushed the buck. We've pushed the envelope. We'll know what's to be let in and what is not to be let in by what is good and what is bad. Okay, how do we know? Push back the question. Continue the inquiry and continue the inquiry in the open. Again, so that participants with different perspectives on it can give a yes and. These post-its are not negating or debating each other. And this format, if somebody does want to join for the next half hour, again, and in the Atrium, have a live conversation, provide their own live remarks, or have a discourse, amazing. Otherwise, this is like a conversation where it's nonlinear. And so we can be building this kind of a knowledge niche with just the people who are showing up. It's like a governance of the active. So let's look at more of these writings. Goals, functions, needs. These can be subjective and relative. Great comment, thank you. Absolutely agree. And it reminds me of the concept of an affordance, which is like a capacity for action. Affordances are about the relationship between the person and the action affordance. So there are things that one person or one species might be able to pick up, but it's not able to be picked up by another. So being able to be picked up isn't just some sort of atomic or fundamental attribute of the object. It's about the relationality and the subjectiveness and the contextuality of that relationship. And in complex systems, we often talk a lot about what are the entities and what are their relationships. Let's continue on that filtering thread. Filter. This is relating perhaps to the what does it mean to filter and why does one need to filter? Filter, to protect, question mark, to search, to contribute, to understand, step by step. This is really nice to connect back to the hot coffee filtering, that tasty and stimulating example from my day. In what way could we say that that coffee filtering did these? The filter was protecting the grains of coffee from dropping down, or the water was searching for the caffeine and binding to it, surrounding it, or it was through gravity, or through the process described as gravity. It was searching for a local energy minima. What was that filtering contributing to? A cup of coffee? Perhaps a live stream. Step by step. Okay. Let's read a few more, and then I think actually this image that someone has shared will be amazing for starting the next page. I'll read this comment. Oh, thank you. Deep time versus present time. Data available in the moment seems to be accelerating, making deep time perspective more difficult to see. Filter? Question mark. Very insightful comment. Thank you. Post-it note sharer. There's a lot of ways to go, a lot to say there. Perhaps I could say nobody doubts, or it doesn't even matter if anyone doubts or if I'm thinking that many or few do. But we can accept the present and deep time as both existing at the same quote time. But it is so true that the data that are available in the moment, whether one is a bacteria in a turbulent water or whether it's a person in an online community of practice, it can seem like the availability of information and the pace of it and the contextlessness of it is stripped, and that can make deep time perspective more difficult to see. So how does filtering relate to our ability to respect and build awareness of deep time and to act in a deep time sense? We all produce the result in the system that we don't want, and we do it out of rational response to the constraints and the incentives and the punishments. We all produce the result in the system that we don't want, and we do it out of rational response to the constraints and the incentives and the punishments that the system puts on us. That's the number one really important systems insight, is that system behavior comes out of the system, its interrelationships, its goals, not the elements and the people, the actors in it. And that immediately has a profound effect on the way systems people talk, because they rarely blame people for things. They blame systems. Dana Meadows, thank you. Is it about purpose, which is more ongoing? This is really getting interesting, and let's head over to actually slide 3. I want to bring in the image from the previous slide and have this as like a trace that will start. So head over to slide 3, and I'll expand this image that someone has shared in, and we can use that as a starting point. Can erase some scribbles, leave a little trace. So let's head over to slide 3 and continue. Awesome, though. Thanks again, everyone, for adding so much insight to the Jamboard. It means, it says, it shows a lot. This is relaxing, and people can return to it and even contribute to it. So many of our community are asleep or they're busy at this moment. But when we rewatch and when we re-engage with the traces, we can actually have a kind of distributed coherence. So let's go to the third slide, and let's look at what someone has shared here and make this larger, and then we can shrink it down after we've familiarized. So I believe they wrote, this is from Daniel Christian Wall's Designing Regenerative Cultures. How our beliefs, assumptions, and cultural conditioning affect what we see. And I'll start at the lower aspect here. Observable data and experiences as would be recorded on a video. What data do I select from what I observe? What cultural and personal meaning do I add? What assumptions influence the meaning I add? What conclusions do I draw from these assumptions? What beliefs do I adopt about the world? Thanks, whomever has shared that. That's really insightful and relevant. It ties into our filter discussion, and I think it operationalizes it. It gives a bit of a process, and let's recall that filter discussion about how it depends on the semi-permeability of the mode and the goals, the functions, the needs. So here we're going to continue on filtering and build and respect the previous work and provide a yes and to what Daniel Christian Wall has created, and then also what we're now creating together. So how does this play out in online community? What are the observable data and experiences that we have, as would be recorded on a video? We could almost say, as would be what is sent in the video chat. And that's kind of like the observable of online connection. And from the earlier part of our discussion and presentation, we have had one in-person complexity weekend in 2019. And since then, it's been really clear, changes in the world or not, that having a robust, accessible, and inclusive online layer is vital. And that has actually scaffolded so many local meetups. And we would very much look forward to when there's a critical or relevant density in some region that people can scaffold hybrid events or in-person complexity weekend type events. But here we are in the online setting. So where is the filtering? Awesome. So filtering, as this person has added, this is what data do I select from what I observe? So someone is looking at their computer screen. Is the gather window full window? And are they selecting to look at the person? Or maybe the video lag is creating some challenges. Or maybe the person's not using their video, or they're using a deepfake, or they're using some other type of technology such that just watching the pixels isn't the full story. And then what do we add? This is really creative framing, because the filtering is happening just from a linguistic layer, is happening here. What data do I select? Where's the filtering? And then what are the next steps? Adding, and then drawing, just like we're doing. And then what beliefs do I adopt? And then the reflexive loop closes the loop. So I'll read some of these insightful comments that others are leaving. I select data according to one, okay, I'll read this one. Our clicks and watches inform the algorithms to bring us more of that kind of content and more extreme versions of that content. Yeah, very insightful. When the criteria that's being maximized is time on platform or engagement on the platform, we can have some runaway outcomes that might not even be expected or preferred by any of the participants. And I think that relates to the Meadows quote from the previous slide about taking a systems perspective. If our purpose is to protect the self and keep things simple, then the reflective loop will close in, which explains the tendency for dogma, conspiracy theories, and cognitive walls. Thanks for sharing. Yes, there's been some quite interesting work on the Bayesian brain and the way that these top-down priors about the world, which structure the way that incoming information is interpreted, the way that these kinds of Bayesian brain framings of perception and belief updating can be used to explore, as this person has written, dogma, conspiracy theories, and cognitive walls. Rather than cultural and personal meaning being added, it affects what data do I select and observe. Yes, very true. These additions here, someone else could, of course, have a different visualization, or this isn't to say that there's like a linear sequence here per se, but yes, like what is added here influence what data are selected in the next time step or an unfolding, developing way. Like if someone adds in meaning that a certain type of expression in a certain context isn't relevant, that is going to downweight the attention that's paid. Observable data and experiences vary from one person to another. We can be observing the same image, but each one of us would generate a different data collection. Thanks for sharing. It's really insightful and really important to note. And this is like the basis of pluralism and of having a diverse community, even a community of two, even twins who have lived in the same room for their whole life are going to be looking at the same image in a different way. So how will we take this as a starting point rather than as an ending point? And it really ties into many of the core complexity weekend approaches that we co-construct, such as seeing complexity as a starting point, not an ending point. Sometimes in disciplinary work, complexity is brought in to mean intractable or complicated, and it's like a mic drop at the end. We did this investigation and it's complex. Close the book, end the discussion. But what does it look like when we start by recognizing this multi-perspective reality or this complex perceptual process or the nuances of cultural and personal meaning, and the way that for every entity that's going to shape what information they select, which then in the context of the bubbles, like echo chambers or bubbles just considered more generally, or algorithmic enforcement of those bubbles especially, how do we balance in a fractal way breaking out or not breaking out? Why would we or why wouldn't we want to do that? Or when or how would we or not want to? There are an infinite number of narratives that can logically, consistently weave together any finite set of facts. Very interesting. So how do we choose the good ones? It's almost like the adjacent possible of dots to connect becomes vast. Way vaster than one algorithm or one person can sort or experience. So how and when and where do we bias which dots to connect and which paths to take? And how do we align those paths of our attention, of our action, our intentions? How do we align those with each other to build trust and to have momentum together on teams and in communities? How do we align those with service and with impact? Otherwise, we might be having a really awesome discussion, but the Titanic is going down and the discussion is great. What is complexity? What is not complexity? Oh, yes. Are we going to share by voice on Gather during the session? Oh, yes. This Jamboard will end in about 5 or 10 minutes. And then immediately afterwards, all interactive activities are in Gather. And so the Jamboard, usually there's a few others on the stream, but the stream exists as like the tip of the iceberg. And it's just 1 hour long out of the many hours of the heartbeat and of the weekends. And so, yes, we're all going to be connecting directly in a non-recorded, non-live streamed setting. So this is just to leave an artifact that helps people rewatch if they're asleep or if they're not able to make this first interval. And then we connect on the edges in Gather. So yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. What is complexity? What is not complexity? How to be skillful related to and participate in the collective meta conversation when one experiences dissonance between a presumed explicit goal, for example, discussing what is complexity, and the living interaction in the system, e.g. collective reflection loops. Thanks, that's very insightful, great question. Okay, I thought we were also going to use Gather in this session. I thought you told us to go over there. Yes, just to clarify, thanks for the feedback. I just offered if anybody wanted to join this 1 hour live stream and be recorded in that way, that they were welcome to join this stream, but in just a few minutes, the live stream is going to end, and then we're all going to be in Gather just talking about it as a group and in one-on-ones. So thanks for that. I hope that clarifies it. The goal of making the best choices equals the need to be open but cautious, curious and humble, self and other reflective as opposed to reflexive. So I guess in our final minutes here in the stream and in the Jamboard, what do we take from here? How are we going to build and prepare ourselves to engage and interact? This could be the kinds of like really conceptual or very cross-system applicable insights that people have been sharing. It could be very pragmatic and very executable. I'm going to close my chat windows so I can focus on engaging one-on-one in a conversation. Or I'm going to make sure that for the 1 hour that I have, I'm going to show up fully. Or I'm going to take a screenshot of this and add it to my journal. Or I'm going to write down a few ideas and questions that I'm having, and maybe in the next sessions, all interactive and Gather, or maybe even in the next heartbeat, or maybe next year, I want to show up differently to my work or to family or to a complexity weekend event. I want to show up differently because of what these insights have left on me. There will just be 1 more minute of the live stream, and then the final 5 minutes of the hour, take a break and stretch, and then I'll post the link to the Gather Atrium. I'll post it into the YouTube live chat. So it's a gather.town link, and it's also linked in the calendar event that you've been added to, and it's also in the program. So in just a few seconds after I read some of these last notes, we'll close the live stream and then take a break. And then at the top of the hour, we'll meet you in the Atrium, which is that Gather space. So you'll have time to log in, and then just a few minutes after the hour, we'll start the one-on-ones. But I'll close with reading this awesome comment. What is not complexity? That is a great question, because I can't personally think of a non-complex system, because each system is constituted of other systems components like atoms and electrons that I can describe as complex. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This was really a lot to think about, and we all added so much to the picture here. And now we go into the bulk of the iceberg. Now we go underwater, underground, and into our community. So thanks again for this live stream. Last 4 minutes of the hour, take a break and then load up the Gather Atrium space, and I will meet you there very shortly. So thanks again. Thanks, Yana, for all the co-organizing, and thanks all the committees that enabled this, Michaela and Sean, and Chris and Sevo of Tech and Outreach, who did so much amazing work this month. And as mentioned before, these are all participatory communities and co-organizing. So hope to see you very soon in Gather. Peace out, everybody.